Hey, you know me. I'm the clapper loader. And not to be confused with the crapper loader. If you don't know what a clapper loader is, I suggest you Google it and my picture will pop up. Just kidding. Just kidding. Today I'm reviewing. This is my first review. Let's start with that. And I will refrain from spoilers. But I will be doing some comparisons to other films. And if you don't want to hear it, then I suggest you go and you watch the movie Malignant, 2021, directed by James Wan. Either on HBO Max, because it was released today. I tried to watch it in the middle of the night and I was falling asleep on it, so I stopped it and I watched it for lunch today. And I just had a box full. That was not a sound effect. But I have to say, Malignant is the reason why I'm doing this podcast. Can you believe it? Aren't we thrilled that movies inspire regular Joes to go out and create careers around talking about movies? I'll get into all the introductions about myself later on. Again, I am the clapper loader, and let's get started on Malignant. So, Malignant is a James Wan film. If you are not familiar with James Wan and his work, he has created universe upon universe. The Annabelle Conjuring Nun universe, as well as the Insidious universe. You know, it's interesting because I knew James Wan was directing this, but I totally forgot that he had anything to do with Insidious. All I could think of was The Conjuring, I guess because recently The Conjuring 3 was released. But I forgot about Insidious and how he had his hand in it. He also, every once in a while, veers off into different things like, Aquaman, which is not scary. I would say for me personally, the only thing that he did that I won't like and can't do, I just cannot do any of the Saw films. They kind of go beyond my boundaries. Okay. But I like Insidious. I think I lean more toward horror that won't possibly happen in real life. You could have a Saw in real life, and I'm kind of like, that's a little much for me. I hope that you enjoyed it. I will say, though, that I did like Spiral, and I did see that. But really, that was a Chris Rock pull, because I miss Chris Rock on the big screen. Okay, I digress. We are going to talk about Malignant. Malignant stars Annabelle, gosh darn it. That's her last name because it just left my mind. But you know who I'm talking about. She was in the Tom Cruise The Mummy movie with blonde hair. I couldn't place her face to save my life. I'm watching this trailer and I'm looking at her face and I'm thinking, I know who she is. But I couldn't find in my mind where she I had acted before. I found out that she was in The Mummy. Okay, great, with Tom Cruise. That's about all the exposure that I had to her, with her, as an actress. So, I know that she's dating Chris Pine, because he's hot. But anyway, again, I digress. And let's just stick to the story of Malignant. We can talk about the cast in a bit. I'm not really familiar with the cast. It's outside of Annabelle. And her last name is still escaping me. But you know exactly who I'm talking about. So, look. There's a million reviews out there. And everyone has got their own opinion. Right now, I was reading, right before this podcast, that Malignant is at 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. Which I would not be surprised that it goes up from there. Because having been a film fan girl my entire life, I can definitely say that I've not seen anything remotely close to this type of film. I would say at least since the 80s and maybe some 70s work. Maybe some Roger Corman's stuff. Okay? It is so unique. It was such a breath of fresh air. I felt this way about Tenet because I felt like Tenet was a breath of fresh air. I felt like that with the film Nobody this year, 2021, because I felt that was a breath of fresh air. I felt that way about the film The Night House recently with Rebecca Hall. I felt that was a breath of fresh air. But this one is even more special because it takes itself seriously. And boy, does it take you for a ride. Some people are going to feel this is stupid and silly. How the heck can they even make a plot like this and film a plot like this and put it up on the screen and you know, have people believe that this is a horror movie? I would say, if you are in that camp, I'm sorry that you are in that camp. But this movie, Malignant is a masterpiece. Now, if I were going to compare it to another film, or talk about its appeal to a film goer without spoiling too much, so don't listen past this point. Ding, ding, ding. Don't listen past this point if you don't want spoilers. So, final warning, and it's not really a spoiler. What it is I saw the movie and I can't stop thinking about it. And I started putting a jigsaw puzzle, no pun intended on the jigsaw, with James Wan and Saw. But I started putting things together, other films. What film could this possibly be akin to? And you know what I came up with? I came up with Get Out. That is what I thought about Malignant. After some thinking, it took me a couple hours to process, but I came up with Get Out. And here's why. Get Out is about a guy, or let's just say a person, who is going to be pushed aside by another entity in one physical being. Right? So we have that already happen with one character played by Lakeith. Why can't I think of last names? I can't think of last names. But Lakeith. Handsome Lakeith. Okay. Why can't I think of? Anyhow, we had one character. Right? He was already transformed, if you will. He was living inside of a body that had been taken over and being used by another person. So there were basically two personalities in one body. Is this not a fair assessment or synopsis of Malignant? It's basically some sort of long-lost distant cousin on the script trip. We've got Get Out and we've got Malignant. And Malignant takes another approach to the two people in one body thing. And I was there for it. I believe Sisters, if I'm not mistaken, Sisters with Margot Kidder, I believe is a Cronenberg movie. I believe it is a Cronenberg movie. One of the things that I was thinking about during the film, during Malignant, as I'm watching it, was Cronenberg. Because he uses a lot of the science fiction, horror, body horror, sci-fi, if you will, elements in a vat of stew, very much like Malignant is. But it all works out. Malignant is a masterpiece because of the fact that it can take 4 different genres of film and mend it all together in a beautiful quilt and actually make it work. How do you make that work? How do you make a movie work like Get Out? Where Get Out was just kind of like a character study of what could have happened to our main character, our protagonist. It didn't happen to him. It happened to someone else. So we weren't able to look through the protagonist. I'm not talking about Tenet. I'm talking about the protagonist in Get Out. We saw him go to the sunken place where he was living life or experiencing life through his own eyes and physicality, but not being able to operate his body. And is that not, that's Malignant. That is Malignant, guys. So, Malignant is a distant script cousin. Little alterations there. Put some beads and some pearls on there and you got a whole different dress. But, man, did it work. Man, did Malignant work. You can talk about campy Sam Raimi movies. I only like some of Sam Raimi's work. Specifically, the Spider-Man, his work with Spider-Man. I do like The Gift. I thought, growing up, that some of Sam Raimi's work was too silly for me. I thought maybe I was like one of those teenagers. I don't like Evil Dead. Ew. I don't still. Although, I am a fan of Army of Darkness to an extent. Sometimes it gets a little too silly for me. And he uses the same techniques in Spider-Man as well sometimes. And it worked in Spider-Man. Some people love Army of Darkness. Those are, classics. Not my forte, but that's okay. We're here talking about films because we either like them and agree or we don't agree. And I like to not agree because we can't all like everything. And maybe you can introduce me to something that I've not seen before. And I can do the same. So difference of opinion is not always a bad thing. So there's that. So I'm going to close up this podcast with another glowing review of Malignant. It was amazing. I saw it on HBO Max while I was eating my lunch. And I will be this weekend going to see it in the theater. I didn't want to wait to see it in the theater. I actually thought it was more horror and scary horror, like maybe Exorcist style, than I wanted to experience in a theater alone. I didn't want to do that. So I now want to go back and just drink the visuals in on a big screen. There are no IMAX showings near me, so I will. Is it Annabelle Wallace? I think that's her name. Finally came back to me. And Lakeith Stanfield. See? Here we are. Stuff is coming back to me now. Right as I'm about to stop the podcast. But I'm looking forward. I don't know if I'm going to want a sequel to this. I think this might be a standalone. But if it does well enough, they are going to pump a sequel out. My fingers are crossed that it will be as good as this. I don't know. How can you do it? How can you make it good? Better? I don't know how do you improve on the best. I don't know. But maybe that's why there won't be a sequel to Tenet or Inception. Because you can't improve on the best. The best is the best. Malignant is amazing. I hope that you enjoy watching it and putting it in your collection of amazing films. When it comes out on DVD, I will be buying it. Just like I got Tenet and Nobody and Waiting for On the Night House. We'll get that too. By the way, guys, I'm the clapper loader. There's no movies without me. Have a good night.